like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Marquette Township Board. In the absence of the supervisor, the clerk will open the meeting, so that's what I'm doing. So we, for the meeting tonight is July 1st, 2014. So if we'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call will be Supervisor Limata, Trustees Durant and Truscott are excused this evening. Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
And Clerk Rotari is here. Staff present is Manager Gerard. Legal Counsel Roger Zappa is here tonight. Dave Wiegand from Roads and Recreation. John Marks from the ZBA. And I see Ora Jane Kennedy from the Township Library Advisory Board here. And from this point on, we need to pick a chair of the meeting.
Make a motion, we put the gavel in the trustee hands of Treasurer Johnson.
Second.
Okay, Treasurer Johnson's been nominated as the chair of the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-1. I move the gavel over to Treasurer Johnson. You have now control of the meeting.
35 minutes.
Okay, the first thing up is a consent agenda. And first item is approval of previous minutes of June 17th. And committee reports, the Personnel Committee, Planning Commission, Recreation and Road Committee. Bills payable in the amount of $142,064.34. And financial statements, the May 24th financial statements and the May 2014 Treasurer's Report.
Is there any of you want to remove any of them from the consent agenda? I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve it. Second?
I'll support that.
Or any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Anyone has any additions to the agenda?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion made and support to approve the agenda as presented.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda will stand as presented. Public comment? For anyone that would like to get up and talk at this point in time, now's the opportunity.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jim Clark. I'm manager of Cornerstone Development Corporation. I need to reserve time for items 9A and 10A. Thank you.
Jim. Anyone else would like to speak at this point?
I'm Sean Howdemacki from 2683 Center Street, and I would like to reserve time to talk about the sewer project.
My name is Andrew Winslow from 2452 Norwood. I would also like to reserve time to talk about the sewer project.
Dave Winslow, 2502 Norwood. I would like to reserve time to speak about the sewer project.
Anyone else that would like to speak during public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and then we'll go to board members' comment.
Board members, do you have any comments you'd like to present at this point in time? Trustee LaRue?
For those who did not, don't get the newspaper, last Thursday on the 26th, there's a couple articles in the newspaper. If you can go online or something to get them, or pick up a newspaper, the Mind Journal from Thursday, June 26th. There's one about the ice rink for the Lions Field. And then also about the other article was about the big box tax issue. Very good article. It just explains what's going on in the township. It's worthwhile reading about it, so, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other board member? Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, just to inform the board, the supervisor, myself, and the treasurer have not had a chance to meet on the board policies yet. I did talk to the supervisor, and he was writing on his own to start like a sort of a draft, and then he was going to get together with myself and the treasurer and go over that to get that ball rolling. But we have not got that rolling yet, so that won't be discussed this evening, unfortunately. And there's a few folks that reserved time about the sewer project. Unfortunately, there's not on the agenda, but on the next public comment, please come up and address that, okay? So it shouldn't take that long, I hope, for the meeting. So I didn't realize when I talked to you, we didn't have that on the agenda, but so in the next public comment, just come up and address that, okay?
Hearing no other comments from the board members, we'll move on then. We'll close board member comment. We have no forum discussion. And the next item is 9A, the Public Works Building Construction Update. Mr. Clark?
Good evening, board members. I have Bromley Hall here from Tom Hall Contracting Incorporated as well, so if you need any questions answered, he can give you more details on specific items. To date, the building is completed. We have one more item or change order to discuss in item 10A, but the final occupancy permit has been issued. The Public Works staff is utilizing the facility. There is one item in the contract that is still outstanding, and we're going to work around Public Works staff to get that done. And what that is the original floor of the garage area where the fire equipment apparatus was stored. It needs to be grinded out and resealed so it matches the new flooring, the new concrete surface. And other than that, just some other minor items. And on our next board meeting, we will look at providing you the final billing for retention. And I believe Mr. Hall is getting the final OEM manuals together for all the equipment and materials that were used in the facility, so you would have records of that if you need to maintain your building. I'll avail ourselves to any questions that you may have at this point.
Any questions from board members?
I'd just like to make a comment on how well it looks. You did a nice job on that, Bromley. Very well, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Does the manager have any comments on where we're at this point in time with that?
Well, not a whole lot to add. I mean, if you have not had a chance to go into the facility recently, it's occupied daily now, so stop by and take a look at it. I think you'll be impressed with what's happening. As Mr. Clark mentioned, the one main thing that is remaining is the grinding and sealing of the main truck bay. I'll call it a truck bay, basically the garage portion of it, and that is to fill in some of the voids between the old floor and the new floor, and to put a consistent surface on it. The only remaining item beyond that is the transition from the storage garages that we're currently using, the old Public Works garage, which we still have a fair supply of repair parts for the water and the sewer systems there that have to be moved over to the new building. And then at that time, I'm hoping possibly for the July 15th meeting to have a purchase agreement on your agenda to transfer the old facilities to the new ownership. Beyond that, any questions?
Trustee Pompel?
The building that the Public Works is, or the storage facility that they are renting monthly, is that going to be closed off now?
It's actually going to be closed off by then, and I think I'm going to pick it up for a couple of months because we'll be having the equipment start to arrive for the kiddie park replacement, and we'll have to have somewhere to store that until we're able to put it up. So I'll be utilizing that garage to do that. But then it will go away.
I think the only question I have is, as we move in, that's a final entity that we're taking charge of. So that means we have the other entities that are sitting over there. We should be getting close to getting rid of those at this point in time.
Yeah, and that's what I was referring to. That purchase agreement, I'm hoping, will be to you for the meeting on the 15th of this month. Once Public Works is totally out of that facility and we've moved everything out of the garage portion of it, then we'll have that transfer for you. Looking at the 15th.
Okay. Hearing no more comments, we'll move on to the next item. Is the 9B, consider the council recommendation resolution to approve the Peter White Public Library millage proposal. We have that in our packet, the resolution that we have to approve at this point in time to move forward. Also, it indicates the language that's going to appear on the ballot at this point in time. So, Clerk Rattari.
Yeah, after last meeting, I did call legal counsel and chatted with him for a while about this issue. It's not, you can't, I mean, we have a drafted millage language that either we approve or disapprove. We can't change it because we just can't do that. And I'll, I guess, turn it over to Roger and he can explain why we can't do things like that. And I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. Basically, it appears from the information that was provided to me that there was already a motion by this board to approve the clerk's adoption or drafting of renewal language, that the millage would be, millage renewal would be placed on the ballot. What you have before you this evening is essentially an approval of the specific ballot language. So, anytime you have a renewal, that means in tax law and millage law, it has a very specific meaning that it's just a voting in of the same thing you had before. So, for example, with the Headley rollback, which is very minimal and not at all now in some years, it's a .9061 mils. If you were to change that back to 1 mil, which it started out with when this millage was put into place some number of years ago, that would not be a renewal. That would be new millage because it's for a different amount. Similarly, if you reduced the millage or attempted to reduce the millage to a .75 or a .5 or some other figure, that is not a renewal either. That is a different millage, and that would be contrary to what this board has already acted upon, to my understanding. So, in order to readdress, if that's the board's pleasure, whether it should be something than what has already been voted upon, there are procedures to do that. Even if Robert's Rules of Order have not been formally adopted, they provide good guidance on how to proceed with something like that. A motion for reconsideration would not be in order because a motion for reconsideration can only be taken up at the same meeting. For example, if something new came up at the same time or subsequent to the previous vote on the same night, that would be permissible. A motion to rescind can be considered. However, a motion to rescind is a very specialized type of motion, and that basically requires a motion and a 2/3 majority vote in order to rescind former action that's been taken. On a 7-member board, a 2/3 majority vote is a vote of 5. So you have a problem tonight to even address that. And that would, even if it was adopted by a vote of 5, all that would do is take off the action that had been previously approved at whatever meeting that was. The date is escaping me at the moment. But that would only put you back to square zero, and then you'd have to pass a new motion by a simple majority if the board wanted to enact some other type of millage proposal, such as increasing it to 1 mil or 2 mils or reducing it to .75 mils. That would be new action. And because you've already acted on that, the only way that I could see that you could legally accomplish that would be by a motion to rescind with a 2/3 majority vote of the entire board.
I have a question then. If this resolution I'm reading, we could still pass it this evening with a majority of this four, right?
Absolutely, because
Okay.
that's just in follow-up. The prior motion was to authorize the clerk to proceed with whatever action was necessary to place a renewal of the millage on the ballot. So this resolution and the attached ballot language follows up with that prior board action. It puts a renewal, which I believe the millage rate is .9061. That's the rate I got from the assessor because there is no rollback
Right,
at this.
that's true.
This year. So that would be the rate that a renewal would be at. Again, there are procedures to increase millage, to decrease millage, but this isn't really the time or the place to address that at this point because that's already been acted upon. It can't be acted upon within the absence of a motion to rescind.
Secretary.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution for the millage language.
Support.
We have a motion to accept the millage language proposal, and we have support. Board discussion?
Wish some more people were here.
Yes, that's my problem. We're only down to 4 now, and we're missing 3. And that was one of the reasons we held it over to this meeting, because there wasn't sufficient amount of people to vote on it. And that I have a major problem going with the current millage strictly because we do not know what the costs are going to be for the roads in this township. If you look at what I presented to the board after the last meeting, is that just with 1 mill, it would take 26 years to fix all the roads as been being presented by the road committee. That's unacceptable. There's no way you're going to do it in that, because that's at the cost as of today. You don't know what the costs are going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. You have no idea. And some of the roads you're fixing today, in that time frame, will have to come back and be redone. So I'm very uncomfortable voting for this kind of increase. It's not that I'm against the library at all, but the people want roads, and the roads are deteriorating at such a rate here in the township, we have to do something. And we've had nothing come before this board as to what they want to project to the residents for its millage. 1 mill is not going to generate sufficient dollars in the long run to do it. So we have to come up with some way to alleviate a big millage to the residents and that. And there's no way out of it. And so I'm very uncomfortable doing this at this point in time and that. So, Secretary.
Yeah, the only problem I have is I'm running out of time, and we don't know if we're going to have a quorum even possibly at next meeting. So, I mean, that's my feeling. We give it 2 years, and we'll see where we're at in 2 years. That's what my opinion is.
Clerk Pompel, or, excuse me, Trustee Pompel.
As far as correct me if I'm wrong, but this doesn't go towards our cap for millage, correct?
Correct. And also, just for the benefit of the public, all this is doing is approving the ballot language. So
Right.
the public is free to vote yes or to vote no. That's really the only action you're taking tonight, is to approve the ballot language and place it on the ballot.
Right, and that's kind of where I was going with this. I understand Treasurer Johnson's concern, and we all have that concern. But I think I've always felt that the decision of the residents, to me, would be in their best interest to decide whether or not they want to pay the millage. I'm sure all the residents realize that we have problems with money. I can't imagine they don't, with all the information that's been given. If the residents, if we really do want to go with roads, like I said, this doesn't go towards our cap for amount of millage we can ask for. So, and also agreeing with Clerk Vitari, we are running out of time. And so that's just my feeling. It's a 2-year deal. I think we could probably handle 2 years. But personally, I think we just need to leave it up to the residents.
Trustee LaRue?
I would like to, I support the library, but I was thinking of supporting at the same level we did last year and use some of that for our roads, but we don't have an option of doing that, doing it this way, so. That was my way of looking at it, you know. It's
I think
we need a way to get to the library, so, you know, we need roads. But it's an awful balance, you know, I mean, yes, it's, don't go to our cap, but it's still money coming out of their pockets, so that's the way I look at it, so.
That's what I'm concerned with, because we have no idea yet what is going to be presented to the board to put on a ballot for roads at this point in time, regardless whether the library is part of the cap or not. Like I say, 1 mil will generate X number of dollars, and which will take 26 years to, and that's figuring $6 million. And if you remember at the last meeting, the road committee came up with 6.7 million. So you start putting 6.7 million against, rather than 6 million, how far out are you going to go? 30, 35 years out. I can't see, we're in a difficult situation right now, so. Trustee, our clerk, retiring.
Yeah, the resolution will be in the minutes as always, but I will read the ballot. It's Exhibit A, and I'll read that because it's not very long, and just for the residents' information, what we will be placing on the ballot if it does pass would be the Marquette Township Library Millage Renewal Proposal. And the question would be, shall the previous voted increase in charter millage in the amount of $1 on $1,000 of taxable value reduced to .906 mils, which is 90.6 cents per $1,000 of taxable value, by the original millage rollback be renewed in amount of not exceeding that 9.906 mils, which again is the 90.61 cents on $1,000 of taxable value, and levied for a period of 2 years, 2014 and 2015 inclusive, to be distributed to the Peter White Public Library for the purpose of providing library services to the residents of the Charter Township of Marquette. The estimated revenue the township will collect in the first year, if the millage is approved and levied, is approximately $213,657.86, and it's a yes or no.
Any further questions from the board on that? Any further comments, I should say? Just that, like you say, the $213,657 the first year, you're going to be pushing $220,000 to $225,000 the second year, and that, like I say, I have nothing against the library. I'm just very concerned with the citizens. How much are they willing to commit themselves to fix the roads in this township, and that, and that's the problem we're going to be facing, and that there's just no way out of it, and that there's only so much money in these people's pockets, and that, and I know the clerk is under a timeline to get this all done, so. If there's no more further questions or comments, I'll call for the vote, and I would like to have a roll call vote.
It's a roll call vote because it's a resolution. So Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Pompo,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes,
and Treasurer Johnson.
No.
Okay, motion carries 3 yeses, 1 no, and 3 absent. I believe that does carry, right, Roger? Yes. Okay, so motion carries. So I will get that to the county clerk probably tomorrow or Thursday. It'll be certified, and that will be on the November ballot for the residents to decide.
Okay, we're under new business.
First item is the Public Works Center, PWP number 3. Mr. Clark, were you up on that?
Yep. Good evening, board members. Jim Clark, Cornerstone Development. I'm here with Romley Hall from Tom Hall Contracting, and most of the detail I would like to turn over to him to discuss, and then if you have any other further questions, I can avail myself to those questions as well. Okay?
Good evening. I guess what I can do is I can go through line by line, just to kind of give a little explanation on some of these, or if you get any specific questions, I can answer those as well. I'll just go through line by line. The fire extinguishers, Integrated Designs had made an assumption early on that we could relocate some existing fire extinguishers. We weren't able to do that. We needed them for our occupancy permit, so we went ahead and purchased those, and just looking for the reimbursement on that. Kirk had asked us to relocate some existing mailboxes for number 2. Number 3, that's one of the main reasons I want to get up on this one. The reason the rock excavation is coming up now, there was a little bit of confusion. The way that we had configured the subcontracts, we asked for the plumbing contractor to provide their own excavation. These were interior trenches that they ran into a little bit of rock. It wasn't, anything that they had to bring a chipper in, or they had to do any sort of blasting or anything. Kind of fell through the cracks, and Oberstar charged SWIC on it. And this just kind of came to light that SWIC was charged for it, and any subsurface conditions per the contract were to be passed on. So I just wanted to kind of explain why that's coming up at this point. The next one, the exterior building lighting swap. Integrated Designs had figured in a limited forward-throwing LED light, real similar to what we did on the fire hall. The ones on the fire hall have no foreshadow, but we've got a little bit more lot lighting than we had up at the DPW. So in the photometrics that are required throughout the Planning Commission, these did not exceed the property lines, and I know there were some complaints as far as the levels of the lighting. And, I think it didn't wash any further than the property limits, but I think what it is just, people up in that area have been so used to very limited lighting that was up there to begin with. And, these just new different lighting, I think, got their attention. So what we did is we swapped those out. Township does have the lights that came off that I believe could be used towards a future project. The additional slab, that was just last minute. Kirk realized that there had been no provisions made for a tank that he needed, and had asked to provide a 4x8 slab. Reconfiguration of the lockers. One thing that kind of fell through the cracks early on, Integrated Designs had specified a standard locker room locker. As I said, things falling through the cracks. It wasn't recognized early enough with the uniform system that you guys have gone to, that these uniforms, when the company brings these things in, they're not going to fit on a hanger inside these lockers. Small thing that got overlooked, but in fact did get overlooked. The reconfiguration and the cost for that includes basically the demolition of what is there. We have a masonry base that this thing sits on. There's structural steel that cantilevers out over the edge for solid plastic benches and whatnot. For the newly proposed lockers, which are called stadium lockers, kind of lockers that you'll see in interviews and football, basketball, baseball locker rooms. They're kind of an open style locker with a security foot locker and a security drawer at the top, but the majority of them are wide open. They don't have any sort of door on them other than on the foot locker and the security drawer. But the reason for that cost itself, like I said, is a lot of it is demolition, but they also, I believe there's a potential spot to utilize these lockers, if I remember correctly, in Lions Field, I believe it was. So that sums up all the items. If you guys have any questions on any of those individual items, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Board members, you have questions? Manager Gerard. Manager.
Just a couple of quick follow-ups. With regard to the lighting, basically what happened with the lighting is you all recognize where the building is, former fire hall is on top of the hill. There is residential housing that's below the grade, and the light was infiltrating some of those areas. We were receiving complaints, so I directed them to change to a more downcast lighting similar to what we have on these two buildings, basically. So that's where that change came from. It was a resolution of some resident issues. We will retain those lights, as Bromley mentioned, we'll retain those lights and use those at Lions Field when we're doing our construction over there with the warming house and some of the other facilities that we're putting over there. Same thing with the lockers. I guess to characterize the lockers that were engineered or designed into this by the architect, they were more like you would see in I guess a gymnasium. The small lock. They're small lockers. They're not big enough for a hangar to be in. You hang on hooks type things. They're small lockers. We will be relocating those to the warming house at the ice rink as well. So we'll be using those lockers that are taken out of the fire department for that and not have to go and buy additional. So those two items will be just moved.
Question on the lights, when you mentioned going over the Lions Field, will we not maybe have the same kind of problem there with the overflow of the light with the residents?
No, because they're downcast lights. They're not broadcast lights. The issue is that the building is up on top of the hill and the residence is below the hill. So even the downcast lights were shining into those homes. They were seeing the lights when they looked out. So we've changed those lights. At Lions Field, that won't be an issue. So we'll be on grade at Lions Field. So it'll just light the area right around the warming hut.
Any further questions from board members of that?
I think it was admirable on the township's part to replace those lights because, as I said, in the photometrics, which are required early on, the electrical engineers perform those basically to ensure that the lighting is not spilling beyond the property limits to kind of get rid of these issues. And in reality, the lighting is not spilling beyond the property lines, but like I said, I think it's just something that's new. Light spilling and being able to visually see a light are two different things. And I think that's kind of what we got going on, but I think it was commendable that you guys answered to the residents.
Okay, I guess that's it. Jim, do you have anything?
I just don't know if there's any other questions.
No. So we do have an action we have to take at this point in time. I think they would like some dollars.
A point of order on the change. There is one more item that was in there that Kirk requested, and the manager Gerard had endorsed, and that was there were 6 items that came from Tom Hall Contracting. The 7th item was through Overstar, and that was for there's a U-shaped driveway in the rear of the building that was put there for turning radius for service vehicles to get aligned to the overhead door in the back. Originally, we thought that could be paved in the early stages of design, but we ran into some significant design problems with that site with the stormwater, and I don't know if the board member remember that we had to go through some significant negotiations with the Marquette County Drain Commissioner as well as the Marquette County Road Commission in order to put drainage structure on that site to drain the site adequately. So one of the things the engineer did in the design was to basically eliminate blacktop on that area and just use gravel. Now that they're in there and they're operational, it's going to turn into an issue where they're going to have to constantly grade it, and because they're turning heavy vehicles in a sharp turn, it's going to be more difficult for plowing. So Kirk Page and Randy Gerard requested that the asphalt be added to that area. Now, it did not require, which was really good, did not require we install any additional drainage structures, and that i.e. being catch basins and piping to get it into the engineered system that's to the north of the property. It's going to sheet flow across that new pavement area right into the engineered drainage system. So that kept the cost down to pave that area. So the total change is basically 20, with all 6 items from Tom Hall and the 1 item from Oberstar, it comes to $22,000. And looking at total percentage of the project, it's 1.5% of the total project cost. I guess I would want to expand a little bit on item 3 with that rock excavation. What it is they had to trench out for the drainage pipes for the flooring system, and what was underneath the ground was actually blast rock material that was filled in the parking lot from the 1991 fire hall expansion. And you cannot put blast rock with sharp edges back into drain around in ditches with drain pipes, because the shifting ground material that could cause the pipes to fail with those sharp edges around those rocks around those. So we had to bring in clean class 2 material. So that's what the additional cost was, to bring in the additional fill and then get it to compaction, so there would not be problems with the concrete floor slabs.
Good. Trustee LaRue. I'll make a motion, we pay the Hall's contracting $15,000, $15,088. No. What is
22.
What is it? Where's the total? Oh, over here.
The overhead.
Okay, on the first one. $22,097. Excuse me.
Clerk Rattari.
I'll second that, but it needs to go to Cornerstone, not Hall Contracting.
Cornerstone Development, okay. Halls is a 15, okay, building the 2. They'll get it.
I think one thing to clarify, when they were talking about those dollar amounts, that was the base amount. Then you have to add in the overhead and different items like that, which brings it all the way up to the amount of $22,097 in that too. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill will be paid.
This separate thing?
Thank you.
It's all good. Okay, so the-
Okay, the next item is the road committee presentation, the order of repair. Clerk Rattari.
If I may, I did talk to Dave earlier today, and he said you'd have a little presentation for the board, about 10, 15 minutes on this. It's just going to be informational tonight, what he gave you, with the hopes of next meeting, hopefully having millage language drafted and hopefully ready to go to the county. Because I have to July 29th to get millage language in, so I mean, our time is short. And so I guess it will be a presentation. We'll have a couple weeks to chew on it, and he'll have questions at the next meeting for it. So
Manager Gerard.
Just a quick clarification, Dave and I have been working on this with Jason McCarthy, the planner and zoning administrator, and with Kirk Page. And basically what we'd like to have happen tonight, if the board is agreeable, would be to have Dave treat this as basically a first reading, provide you the information, give an explanation of what it's about, and then have you have the ability over the next 2 weeks to ask any questions or have any additional meetings or anything that you may need, so we could bring this back to you as a potential action item for your meeting on the 15th, which would then give us an additional time to the 29th to finalize any millage language if you choose to put this on the millage in November, on the ballot.
Along with that, will we not have to, once we get the millage, approve that language at a meeting? So we're going to end up having to have a special meeting then?
Yes, what we intend to do is we intend to have draft language for you on the 15th if you decide to go in that direction to have draft language before you.
Yeah, I can actually draft language, and if the board approves that, then of course we'll move forward. If not, then, but I can kind of, I don't want to say go out on my own, but I can actually create some language in coordination with the road committee and bring that back for the board's approval. Would be the next meeting, or if we have to have another meeting beyond that. But we're trying to fast track this so we can get it done.
I would probably suggest that you concur or meet with our attorney to make sure everything is laid out correctly. So when it does come to the board, everything is hopefully pretty well set at that point in time.
In essence, I would expect that if the board wishes to put a millage question on the ballot, it would be very similar to the millage question that you put on the ballot back in, I believe it was 2007, I think it was, when we did the 4 separate road segments. It'd be in that similar format, but would be patterned basically to identify the roads that are being specified in this project and the timing.
And I did chat with the lawyer today, and we would be doing that next week, so he's available. So
I think the biggest thing that the 4 of us have to come up with is some kind of a millage amount, where we want to go in that too.
We'll have some figures for you.
It's going to be interesting with 4 in that too. So that's what I was concerned with to start with in that too. So.
Yeah, and basically what we're doing is we're responding to all the citizen surveys that have consistently put roads at the top of the list of what needs to be done. We know that the road commission is not going to be able to really do very much, if anything at all, going forward. And, obviously anything that we would do in this process would have to have the concurrence of the road commission from the standpoint that they actually own the road, so they would have to agree to it. We do have rough estimates. We've been working with the road commission as well. Dave has. He has estimates on the documentation that he's going to be passing out to you. They're pretty close estimates, and that would be the basis that we would be looking at what your target might be, how many years you would like to take this project go over in terms of actually doing the road work, and how we would fund that. It's a combination of different ways it could be done.
Turn it over to Dave now.
Dave, all we have tonight is I apologize first for the late handout on the documents and the order of repair. And all I have planned for tonight is just a basic review of everything we've talked about in past meetings, so that you can put some context to what we handed out tonight. And we'll go through what we handed out tonight, and then it's just a matter of reviewing that, seeing if there's any questions. And if you want, I'm assuming we'll go through this whole thing again on the next meeting. So we'll start out first with the order of repair, and then tonight's presentation is just going to consist of RoadSoft's asset management review, PASA review, data used within the RoadSoft program. We had to alter that somewhat for our needs. And we'll take a look at the order of repair, which is broken down into 2 sections. One's a balanced approach and one's a front-loaded approach. And we'll address each one of those when we get to them. Quick summary, and then any questions if you have them. RoadSoft's asset management, to start out, the program was acquired from Michigan Tech University through the Marquette County Road Commission. The program incorporates the PASER data collected by the Marquette County Road Commission from 2009 through 2013. Asset management applies the principles of the mix of fixes as opposed to the worst first. We've talked about that in depth. And the road segments removed from consideration in the road repair, the order of repair, is US 41, County Roads 550 and 492, and Wright Street from the city limits to the 41 intersection. PASER. We all know by now that stands for Pavement Surface Evaluation. It's a surface rating by a certified analyst that rates the surface condition on a scale of 1 through 10. And then the PASER rating is used to identify windows of opportunity with types of repair needed. These are the windows of opportunity as they're set out by PASER. 9 and 10 on the PASER scale is no maintenance required. 8 is little or no maintenance. 7 is routine maintenance and crack sealing and minor patching. 5 and 6 is preservative treatments, and this gets into rehabilitation of road surfaces. Ratings 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 are structural improvement. And the structural improvement gets more intense as you move from 3 and 4 down into 1 and 2. PASER 9 and 10 reflect surfaces in new or nearly new condition, and asset management applies no value to their repair. So you'll see a number of issues on your order of repair that have $0 next to it. PASER 8 are surfaces requiring little or no maintenance. This can be referred to as preventive maintenance, such as crack filling may be applied within this rating. You will see in your order of repair PASER rated roads, segments that are rated as an 8. They're identified as new, and there are dollar amounts next to them. That's for the crack filling that may be applied under that rating. PASER 7 is another preventive maintenance. A little more intensive. It is crack sealing to include overband, which is essentially for cracks that are wider than 1/4 of an inch. That's why it's at a PASER 7. And some minor patching. 6 is rehabilitation. That's chip seal, and that's the same type of repair that's being applied to Commerce Drive this year. 5 indicates a little more aggressive rehabilitation, and that's been identified as an 1.5 inch overlay over the existing road. PASERs 3 and 4 require reconstruction, and the fix for this has been identified as a crush and shape. It's a little more limited on the crush and shape. We're just suggesting we crush and shape the asphalt itself and apply the overlay over top of that, whereas PASERs 1 and 2, it's a little more aggressive approach. We're going to apply 3 inches of gravel and crush and shape the asphalt with the 3 inches of gravel and apply the asphalt overlay over that. The data within the RoadSoft program, there's 2 different terms that are used in your paperwork tonight. You'll see one that refers to asphalt, which is a surface that are 20 feet wide, and an asphalt standard, which is a surface that is 20 feet wide with a 2-foot shoulder on each side. We have very few roads in the township that are identified as asphalt. When considering the type of recommended treatment, RoadSoft uses the following guidelines. PASERs 9 and 10 is no preventive maintenance is considered, and the cost is 0. PASER 8, this is one I referred to earlier, that while it may say new on the type of repair, there are actually dollar amounts applied to it because this is preventive maintenance that is applied to cracks of 1/4 inch or smaller, and the cost is $3,900 per lane mile. And you need to make sure that when you're talking about asset management, you're talking about lane miles. So you're looking at a mile of road, you got to times that by 2. PASER 7 is preventive maintenance. That's crack filling to include overband crack filling, which again is for cracks greater than 1/4 of an inch. And the cost on that goes up to $7,683 per lane mile. PASER 6 is classified now as rehabilitation as opposed to preventive maintenance. That repair category is Chip Seal Plus, which is a slurry of asphalt with chips and then another slurry on top of it. And that's $19,500 per lane mile. PASER 5 is a little more aggressive rehabilitation, and that's an 1.5 inch asphalt overlay. The cost of that is $65,000 a lane mile. Phasers 3 and 4 and repairs within this category is considered reconstruction. And the technique that was considered here again was crush and shape. Cost is $162,500 per lane mile. And Phasers 1 and 2 is the same crush and shape with the addition of 3 inches of gravel. And the cost of that goes up to $195,000 a lane mile. In your handouts tonight, you've got a number of different graphs and charts, and you'll notice some costs that don't seem to line up in the totals. And what you need to remember is when you're reviewing the order of repairs, that is Payzer information only, and Payzer only considers the repair to be done, as opposed to asset management, which considers the repair and then the ongoing maintenance for the life of the program, which in this case was 7 years. The difference comes out to be about $292,000 annually, or the difference between the order of repair from Payzer and the orders of repair from asset management is about $2 million over the forecast period, 7 years. Everything in your packet should be dated June of 2014. And you need to keep in mind that the order of repair was adjusted for those different designations up there: emergency, complete streets, and north-south through streets. And that was to determine the order in each one of those categories. You'll find 2 versions of the order of repair in your pamphlet tonight. You'll find one that is front-loaded and one that is labeled balanced. It's at the top above the green line and the title. The balanced approach, we limited RoadSoft's annual repair budget to $1.3 million over 7 years. The result of that restriction is that, as you see as you'll go through that balanced approach order of repair, is that the last road designated for reconstruction under that program will not be complete until 2021. The front-loaded approach limited RoadSoft to $3 million annually, and the result of that adjustment in the program schedules the last road scheduled for reconstruction would be complete in 2017. That would be a 3-year program to get everything reconstructed that was Payzer 3, 4, 1, or 2. This gives you a graphical display of the 2 different approaches we're looking at. The top one is a balanced approach. The bottom one is a front-loaded approach. The red line indicates roads that are receiving reconstruction. The blue are the lines that are receiving preventive maintenance. And the green is where no maintenance is needed. And as you see on the graph, under the balanced, the number of roads that need reconstruction carry out into 2021 before they're finished. And they get over quite quickly under the front-loaded, and you notice that graph doesn't start until 2015. That was our charge from the board back in the February meeting, was to for the road committee to recommend a street-specific order of repair options as well as preliminary cost estimates. The cost estimates came from Marquette County Road Commission. I'm comfortable to say that those appear to be very realistic. The cost estimates for the Commerce Drive chip seal that we just put was at $19,500 a mile. We're talking just short of a mile of roads. And the estimate came in, I believe, at around $39,000. So that's right on the money with what Marquette County Road Commission set up for our cost. So I've applied that to the rest of their estimates for overlays and crack filling and the crush and shapes.
And I think that is a fairly realistic measure because that was the result of a bidding process that they went out on.
And with that,
With
questions?
that, board members, clerk, Atari.
As I will be drafting the millage language, so what kind of mills are we looking at here?
I would defer that to the manager. It wasn't my job.
Thank you, Dave. We're estimating basically, as you can tell from the figures, that this might be as much as a $7 million project. But that would take in all of the roads in Marquette Township that are not primary roads, the responsibilities of the road commission. So this would be all the roads in Trowbridge, all the roads in the residential areas, and anything other than those primaries that the road commission continues to maintain, which basically are the county roads like 492 in Ontario, 498, Grove Street, 500, those roads. I guess the decision that you need to take a look at is how, A, do you want to proceed on this kind of a course, this kind of a major project, recognizing that the roads aren't getting any better and the road commission isn't able to really do anything about it, and it doesn't look like the legislature is able to do anything about it either, since they broke this summer without addressing the roads. But at any event, they will continue to deteriorate. We know that. The millage that we currently have in place, the last millage was for Werner Street. That was 0.85 of 1 mil for a period of 5 years. That expires this year, so that millage will be going away. Previous millage that we had, we basically simply moved our millage request back up to 5 mils, which is our operating. That was 0.6 mil, and that was for the first project that we did. I believe it was in 2007 we did that project, and that was the 4 intersections that we reconfigured, and also Fair Avenue, which, by the way, was repaired. The damage from the winter has now been repaired on Fair Avenue, so that's back fully open again. Right?
It's drivable now.
Yeah. Well, you can survive it now. At any event, if this is a complete $7 million project and you want to construct it over the 3 to 7 year period of time, you're probably looking at, if you want to pay this off as well in that time frame, 3 mills. Would probably pay it off in right around 10 years, 3 mills. Now, that's not taking into consideration any growth. That's based on this year's taxable value and what 1 mill would generate this year. 1 mill, if you wanted to simply do 1 mill, Ernie, you're a little bit light on yours. You said 26 years. It's actually 29 and a half years at 1 mill. So, that's basically the range. I think it's unrealistic to think about anything beyond 3 mills. So if you're looking somewhere around a 2 mil, 1.5 or 2 mil, rough estimate, it's probably going to be about 14 to 15 years that it would be over that time frame to pay it off. What you will see is a recommendation, as my recommendation is that we front fund it like we have done the other projects, and that, in other words, if the millage passes, we would go out publicly and ask the lending institutions for a proposal, basically to fund it up front, do all of them at the same time, one full fell swoop, be finished with that construction in 3 years, and then pay it off over the life of that millage. Blending in typical growth, we've averaged growth between 7 and 10% a year in terms of taxable value over the last 15, 20 years. Project that will continue for at least the next 5 at that level, and maybe more depending upon what actually does locate here in the township. So I think realistically you're probably looking at somewhere in that 14 to 15 year range in terms of spreading the cost for the entire project.
I could point out a couple more of the handouts that was in your packet. One of them is it's a 2-page handout that's RSL distribution is the label on it. And just to catch a question before it comes up, is in the remaining service life on 2015 through 2021, you'll see at 2021, when all the construction is done, that 65.537% of the roads are rated for 13 years beyond that point before they're That's the life expectancy. Now, obviously, you can add to that every time you go out and do a repair. You're adding to that life expectancy, but it's 65.537. You need to, the first question that comes up is, why isn't that a higher number like 90 or 100? The reason that's not a higher number is we took a bunch of roads out of there. When we took 492, 550, US 41, and Wright Street, that reduced that percentage to 65. So essentially, for the roads that are considered, it's up near the 95% mark.
Trustee LaRue. Would you explain what's Marquette County Road Commission, what are they going to pay for, Dave?
Well, what we're hopeful for, and Randy could chime in on this if he wants, is essentially the Road Commission has no money, but what they've historically done is provided the engineering. And if they're providing the engineering, that's someplace in the range of 15 to 20%, which is someplace in the range of $1.5 to $2 million.
That is what has occurred in the last two millage-funded projects that we've had over the last years. Is that the Road Commission basically granted? Obviously, they welcomed the assist and granted us the ability to do the work on their roads, and they also provided, as Dave mentioned, they also provided the engineering and design services, which equates to roughly 15% of the project. The other thing that we've found in these projects is that when we went out and actually bid the projects in the public sector, the prices came in a little lower than what was projected by the Road Commission, and I believe that may be the same case here. So we may be looking at something less than a $7 million project. The key here is I think you put this out publicly to the voters, and the voters will decide, like anything else. If the roads are the issue that they've been represented to be, 2 mills over 14 years isn't unreasonable to fix all the roads in the township. Particularly since once they're, as Dave mentioned, once they're repaired in that roughly 3 to 5 year range, all the roads would be done. They're good for the next 13 years with some relatively minor maintenance, and the cost of that goes way down. We continue to budget $50,000 a year for general road maintenance to assist the Road Commission, and that would hopefully continue going into the future.
I'd like a front-loaded one, so we can have it done, like I said earlier in our road committee, have a completion in 2017, because as you look at our Trowbridge Park area, we have more of a age clientele residents, and I think they like to see it in their lifetime, that the roads are fixed.
And just a clarification on that remaining service life number, that 13 years, that is, asset management sets that number in there. If you do no maintenance to it, it will last 13 years. You remember from the presentation the time before this, every time you do something like a crack seal adds a year. And every time you do a chip seal or some other form of maintenance on that, it adds years back to it. The whole game that is played in the road soft management algorithms is that every time you do something to a Payzer 7, you do the treatment that will raise that road to a Payzer 9 so that you can start at 9 all over again. But assuming that at the end of this program, all the roads are at a 9 or better, which is where they should be, if you didn't do anything to them, RoadSoft is saying that they'll be in better than a Payzer 4 for 13 years.
But also, Dave, wasn't in the possibility that if we started at three mills and then after so many years drop it down? We discussed that earlier, but that's up to Randy to try to figure something like that out.
Manager Gerard.
Yeah. If we started at that and then get all the roads done within 3 years and then the millage would drop down. I think the secret is people have been putting up with bad roads for how many years now, and they're kind of tired of it. And
well, then there are other options. There are other options to be talked about. Millage is certainly one of the things that's available, and the residents can vote in additional millage up to a cap of 10 mills. Five mills operating plus five additional extra voted mills. So that can be done. Our financial condition is such that we could potentially do municipal bonds, sell bonds to fund the project. So there's also the possibility that we could go through the road commission for bonding, since the road commission is in fact our road agency. They have DPW bonding that they can do. So there are a number of different aspects. It doesn't have to be millage. Millage obviously is the worst case scenario for everybody if it's totally funded by millage. So that's what we're trying to portray as a worst case scenario here.
But roads has become a sort of a standard joke in our area, so I just think the people deserve something, but, how much can we afford to pay? So I think they deserve the roads that we should fix if we can afford them, so.
And that's why the board wanted to go in this direction, to
Right.
develop something, to put it out there for the public to react to before you took any formal actions.
And the next time, when we talk about going back, Dave, to go back and reseal these, we gain X amount of years. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, that was in, and I don't have that slide. Well, I do, but I don't think you have time for me to look for it. That slide.
You got all
but
night.
It was a matter of, the ones I remember are a crack seal extends it 1 year. Would take that service life and take it from 13 years out another year to 14. And a chip and seal extended it, I believe it was 5 years. So it's a matter of what preventive maintenance or what rehabilitation you apply to a given road is how far out it will push it in remaining service life.
I think, listen to everything, but when you start looking at dollars now, 2 mills would generate somewhere around $475,000, somewhere in that vicinity in that. So, to come up with the 7 million, you're talking more than 10 years in that. And if you're looking at the cost factor as $1 per 1,000 taxable value, so on a $50,000 home, you're paying $50 more.
Yeah.
So if you go 2 mills, you're putting another 50, so you're talking about $100 more
That's
per year.
true.
And that's where the crunch is gonna come in, when they start looking at what it's gonna cost them out of their pocket in that. And that's what I was getting to earlier in that. So as much as they don't like the roads, when they start looking at how much money they're gonna pay for it, they're not gonna wanna pay that much in that. So they wanna look at another way of doing it.
And that's why Randy has to come up, what's the best way of doing it and the longest range of doing it, so they can have the benefit now.
Well, and you also need the input from the public, so there needs to be a lot of
That's why
public
we're
discussion
trying
on
to
this. And realistically, that is the question, how important are the roads? I mean, that's, they're at the top of the survey all the time, but now it's time to figure out how we fund it, and, and how best do we do that. And there are options. It doesn't have to be all millage, could be partial millage, could be partial bonding, could be all bonding, it could be a variety of different factors.
What we're saying now is, we really don't have a direction. We have a lot of options on the table here. For us to come up with something tonight, I don't think.
Oh,
we're gonna do
no,
it.
we're not even asking you to come up with anything
No,
tonight.
no.
And,
So,
and realistically, basically, all we're doing is defining what the issue is, what the problem is, and what the magnitude of it is. And as I say, all we're asking you to do tonight is to take this under consideration, look at it over the next couple of weeks. If you have questions, you want to get together with Dave or with me or with the road committee or whatever, to see if we could be in a position for your meeting on the 15th to possibly establish a direction and determine as to whether or not, you even want to put it on the ballot in November as a millage question. You may not. You may decide to hold off till next year and do some additional work. But I think the initial discussion that the board had was, you've heard it enough from the residents that something has to happen with the roads. Well, this is the magnitude of our problem. How do we address it?
This is an issue that we want to talk to your residents, have them call here. They want to have a meeting, we'll set up a meeting, but we want them to discuss it.
Because it's a major financial concern for them that we have to be concerned with, let them know. And,
Oh, absolutely.
That's why we discussed the Peter White Library. That's why that came about, We didn't want to not support the library, but with our growth in that, we still wanted to support them the last year, but there's some extra additional ones there that we wanted to help with this one, so.
Trustee Pompel.
Question concerning the reconstruction roads per our, for better term, rules, is there the ones that have to have the safety strips added to them per our,
Yeah, complete streets is a consideration of all of this, and basically, the short answer to your question is yes. The planning commission basically did recommend that to the board, and the board did adopt that any major reconstruction or new construction, we would provide pedestrian opportunity of some sort. Yeah.
Well, it's.
Where we
I
have the
believe
right of
it
way.
was- I believe it was anytime we do, because
Yeah.
not on some, I think
Yeah,
it was anytime we do.
Where we're gonna run into some issues there is with right-of-way on some of the roads. But, certainly some considerations, with complete streets to be able to provide that connectivity.
So is this estimated cost including that?
I believe it was considered, but I don't know if it's included in these costs. Is it, Dave?
No, it is not. It's not included, and we were talking about that at the road committee meeting tonight, in the road facilities plan that we're working on, and we're trying to come up with a number of alternatives for pedestrian, rather than just a safety strip is not the only and probably not the best answer in some applications. There are a lot of different ways to attack that, and that really needs to be in the engineering fix as to how to approach it, because obviously Woodridge, if you put some kind of a pedestrian walkway there, a safety strip may not be the best solution there. There may be something else that works better.
And we do have the undeveloped right-of-ways in the Trowbridge area as well that might be able to be used for
The
that.
other thing you need to look at is the drainage issues, which Mr. Page needs to weigh in on yet, as to what type of stormwater controls we want to put in, whether you want to put it in as bit curb to channel that water down to the low spots where we can get it off the road, or that needs to be addressed yet.
So that's additional cost that isn't included in this thing. So really,
And there
what
are a
we're
lot of
looking at-
avenues.
what we're looking
for-
at for estimated cost really isn't true, is what I'm saying.
It's an estimate, basically, based upon current figures, and, and realistically, where we will run into some of the issues with that on separation with pedestrian is in the width of the right-of-way that we have to work with in some of the areas. Now, other roads, we have wider right-of-ways. Some of the older roads are more narrow, like Brookton Road, for instance. There just isn't right-of-way there for a pedestrian strip, so there are maybe some roads we may not physically be able to do that with, and we may have to look at other alternatives, as Dave's mentioned.
Right, but per the fact that if we have to install drains, sewer systems, which we are not included in this, I mean, we could run into a heck of a lot more. than what we're
Yeah.
looking at here.
Well, and we've talked about that. We've talked about adding rolled curbing and things such as that, like happened on Badger, to direct the water so it's not eroding away the edges, which is what we're seeing in most of the roads now. The edges of the roads are eroding away. So those all come into the design part of it. So this is a preliminary estimate. We haven't done any design work as yet. If the board wishes to go in that direction, then we would get more firm numbers with those things that you want included in this. But right now, all that Dave is dealing with is the roadways.
Well, I guess I just look at it from the standpoint that if obviously, I don't even know if we'll be ready in 2 weeks to even look at what we're gonna do for millage-wise, but.
Yeah, and you may not.
If, it would be hard for me to vote a millage in when I don't really know how much, what we voted a certain millage in and come to find out we have $600,000 more we gotta throw in there because of the extra cost for stuff, so.
Yeah.
I would like to have a better, clearer picture of how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, and that's, as I say, you may not even want to address this until next year. That's basically something to begin the discussion at your meeting on the 15th.
I think from the discussion we've had right now, I think we're all a little uncomfortable in trying to move in any given direction in that. So I would suggest that we all take a look at this and put it back on the agenda for further discussion at the next meeting. My personal feeling, I don't think we're going to move in the direction of a millage at the next meeting. I think we have to look at all the different alternatives we have. Is probably something we're going to have to move forward on next year in that. Clerk Rattari.
Well, I'll move to put this agenda item on the next agenda under unfinished business.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll ask Dave, will you be available at the next meeting?
Always.
Bernie, I just want to clarify, complete streets, complete street is where it's applicable. You don't, in the township, in the recreation, that we determine where we want the complete streets, where it'll fit in. It's not that every street has to be a complete street.
This is something that we'll have to work through in the overall project, total project, and that's what's going to be and what is not going to be.
Yeah, and I think the residents need to pay attention to what's happening here. Now, these meetings are loaded up to YouTube, so, you know, they can certainly take a look at it and see the discussion that's taking place. But again, this is in response to residents' input in multiple surveys that we've done over the years. And the board basically gave staff direction to bring something back to you to give you a picture, basically, of what it might take to address all of those ills in the roads, and that's what the road committee has endeavored to do here. So now you have it on your plate. The question is, are you going to take a big bite of it, or are we going to nibble at it over a period of time and address it as much as we possibly can, recognizing that we have some financial limitations. I mean, we have millage limitations, we have residents' wants, wishes, and desires.
What
That's
they
where we
want and
go.
what they want to pay for is two different things.
Well, it usually is.
And we have no idea where we're going to stand on the tax tribunal figures or anything else. And we may not know that until next summer.
Yeah, we have development that's coming in that may take up some of this slack and do some of these repairs. As part of that, there are a number of balls that are still up in the air.
You got your road fixed this week, Rand. Does that mean I get my road fixed next?
They didn't do anything on your road. Okay. Everyone take your best shot at this and get your questions, so get ready for the next meeting and that.
I couldn't leave that go.
Okay, next item is a QPAD membership renewal. We've been a member of QPAD for many years and that, and they have a lot of resources that we can take advantage of, and as far as I know, we have, so what is the pleasure of the board? Clerk Rattari.
I'll move to pay the fiscal year 2015 membership dues for Marquette Township not to exceed $781.
Second.
Moved and second on the QPAD. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Negative? Passes. Okay, the next item up is consider payment for the UP Fireman's Tournament. Mr. Sims, would you like to take the podium and explain to us?
This has been the same amount for the last 3 or 4 years now. This is just to offset the lodging, meals, and mileage for the members who go to the tournament. Any questions?
Questions, board members?
This is a budgeted item. It resides in the fire department's budget. Historically, the department has participated. Typically, staff is on scene at the station while the team is gone. So it's typically approved.
Being no questions, is there a motion? Clerk Rattari.
I'll move to, I guess, approve the funding not to exceed $2,200 for travel for the firemen's tournament.
Second.
I do have a question, though. Legal counsel, should Trustee Pompo excuse himself from this one since he's a member of the fire department, or no? Okay.
Okay, any further questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Managers report.
Very briefly, in the essence of time, I know there's some folks who want to speak under public comment on the second comment. I really don't have anything to add to the printed report, just a couple of quick additional items. Number one, Fair Avenue, as I mentioned, the repairs to Fair Avenue were completed, so the roadway is back drivable again without the hazards that were there from the winter freeze. The only other item that I want to mention is that today a town hall meeting was scheduled. It's going to take place here in the community center on Wednesday, July 23rd, and it will be a town hall meeting with Senator Casperson, Representatives Kivala, Deonda, and McBroom will all be here for that public open forum town hall meeting between 6 o'clock and 7:30 on the 23rd of July.
23rd of July.
23rd, Wednesday.
Any questions for the
No,
manager?
23rd of July, not 3rd. No, this is a different meeting. This is a town hall meeting, open to the public.
This is different than the one that's coming up tomorrow evening.
It is, yes. That is a scheduled one with the Marquette County Townships Association. This is a public, open house town hall meeting on really any subject that people want to talk about. So again, July 23rd, 6 o'clock to 7:30 here at the community center.
And we'll have that on our website and that, so
We will.
there. So, any further comments, questions for the manager? I have one on the sand removal.
Yes.
When they went down Fair Avenue, they did not too bad a job. And then it rained, and all that open sand there came all the way back down again, so
That was the road commission. That wasn't the one that I did.
whoever came up Fair Avenue, they missed
Yeah,
some of it.
that was the road, that was the road commission. We contracted separately to get the pedestrian ways on Werner and on 492 done.
I think the last question I have is on this building being, pushing a year old, on any items that have to be looked at, or have you found any that we have to?
We did. We had a list, a warranty list, and it's been, they started working on it a week ago, so we're just about finished with it. You probably noticed that they finished paving the additional lot today. So that'll get striped, and we'll have the additional 30 parking spaces there. But the interior items from the building settling and that after the first year are in the process of being corrected.
How about the front walkway in there where we had problems with that?
That is yet to be done, but that is one of the items.
Because I know that's cracked, there's a crack out there now too, so.
Yeah, that's, it's going to be resurfaced with a non-skid type of a surface because it turned out to be pretty slippery over the wintertime and also when it rains. And then the crack in the north part of the parking lot is yet to be repaired as well.
I'm talking about right out the school, there's
Right,
one.
I know, right outside the entryway is cracked.
Right.
That'll be repaired as well.
Trustee Pompel.
Just a quick question. Is there any possibility that the town hall meeting can be recorded, televised?
Oh, I suspect that it will be. I suspect that they will record it and probably put it up on YouTube is my guess. This is their meeting, and I think they want to, election season's coming up. They want to publicize it.
Okay, no further comment, we'll move into public comment at this point in time.
Todd Nordike, Great Lakes Radio, Suite 3 and 4, 3060 US 41 West, just around the corner. I appreciate your discussion on the roads tonight. I really support what you've done on the roads. Brookton Road's fantastic. I take it every day, and I don't speed on it. You could, though. I really like that road. I love Warner, too. And then you get down past the little child care. Is that Misi? That's not township anymore, is it?
No.
Took a little walk there. The little dogs almost got lost in those potholes. So I appreciate the improvements, and I really support it. And lastly, this is a can-do township. I always say it's Michigan's fastest growing township. And I'd like to see you really get on this road thing and get it in front of the people. Because you guys are can-do guys and you get it done. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Winslow, 2452 Norwood Street. About a week ago, I got a letter in the mail stating that sewer would be coming through on my street in front of my house to the tune of $13,000, and construction would begin immediately. So I didn't really care for that, so I started doing some research as to how this came about with no knowledge on myself about any of this sewer. So I started looking on the internet, and being that I've used to watch board meetings on a regular basis before I went to shift work, I know that the current board that's seated used to talk about communication with residents and getting residents involved. So to me, it was very surprising that I have had no knowledge of this, and none of my residents, or any of the residents in my immediate area also had no knowledge of this. So as I started digging online, I also thought, well, I'll look on Facebook because they have a Facebook page, and that's a good way to get in touch with the younger families in the area. Nothing on Facebook all the way back to 2012 mentioning any sewer project in the Northwest Trowbridge Park area. Also looked in the township criers back to 2012. Nothing. Also looked on the website under announcements and releases. Nothing. Not even an RFP for the project back to 2008. So then I started reading board agendas. And that's when I finally found something. In November 19th, 2013, there was a motion for a proposal for preliminary engineering study for low-pressure sewer system to serve the Northwest Trowbridge Park. That was approved all winter. No letter came out. None of the residents knew anything. Kept digging, found more information August 7th that talks about Grove Street and the northwest corner. Still no information for the residents. These are all in board packets and meeting agendas that I had to dig through to find. And then I come to find out that this was approved May 13th, 2013, with nothing given out to the residents. No public forum, no nothing. Nobody had any input to my knowledge and based on the information that I could find. So for me, it's very disappointing that the board that I listened to preach about communication with the residents, I got none. The only communication I got was a letter in the mail stating that it was going to start immediately, and then the information that I dug up and found that was going to affect my life to the tune of $13,000. So that's, I'm not in favor of the sewer. I know that you've already made the motions and passed them, but I wanted to share my feelings with the lack of communication, in my opinion. Thank you.
David Winslow, 2502 Norwood. I've been a resident since 1978, and I would like to say that I agree with Andrew's comments, that I think that there was very little information put out to the public so that we would have some input or knowledge of what was going to happen. I mean, this is a lot of money for people to have to budget. There was a board in the past that got recalled over a $5 bill a month that they proposed, and this is way more than $5 a month. Mine is less than Andrew's, and mine will be probably $75 to $80 a month that I will have to pay addition and budget for. The other comment I have, in 1990, they put the original sewer system in Trowbridge Park. At that time, every resident was charged a millage. At that time, I asked to have sewer in my house and was told I could not have it. But I still had to pay the millage. So my comment is, why isn't that happening today? Why isn't everybody helping me pay for my sewer like I did for them? Thank you.
Sean Howdemacki, 2683 Center Street. Again, I want to reiterate just the disappointment and the lack of communication. I've lived on this block of Trowbridge since 2010. I used to live on 2692, now I live at 2683. And at no time in the last 4 years since I've lived has anyone mentioned or notified me of a project to put sewer in. For such a heavy cost to our residents, mine is to the tune of $9,900. And as Dave and Andrew didn't mention, that doesn't include my charges to connect to the sewer service ever. That is in addition to that, which would presumably be thousands of dollars. That's a lot of money for a family to pay out, and it really would have been a courtesy to give us time and heads up. And as they've stated before, this has been discussed over some time in your meetings, evidenced by the meeting minutes, and I do feel that it would have been the right thing to do to give us the time to plan our budgets, to know this was coming, because when you do get a letter in the mail saying work is beginning immediately and this is how much it's going to cost you, it's very upsetting. And it's very stressful, and especially after this long, hard winter that we've all been through, adding stress to our residents is something that I think you should try to avoid. Also, I do believe the small number of streets that are being done now and the large amount of money that's being asked of us to pay for this is that our input should have been asked for. I understand that you have a responsibility to vote on certain issues, but this is my pocketbook and my family and where our money comes from, and we have mortgages to pay, etc. And as I just mentioned, I used to live in a house across the street, and I moved to a lot larger house on the other side of the street. Maybe had I known this was coming, we would have done things differently, or we should have at least been given the option to consider that as part of us. Again, only having a week, and the first letter that came out was very misleading and gave the impression that we had to get hooked up right away and that we had to get these permits right away and that this is how much it was going to cost you. And it occupied every conversation my husband and I had for days. It was not the appropriate way to handle the situation at all. Also, I did meet with Kirk Page last week because I was so concerned about this. I wanted to come in and hear straight from him the information, which I would encourage other residents that are having that issue to do the same so they can get informed. Half of the cost, mine is about $9,900, $5,900 of that being my share of the Oberstar bid and $4,000 being a permit for the grinder pump, etc. I have not yet been given adequate explanation for why that costs $4,000. I'd like to know where that money is going because I'd like to know if there's any profit being made off of my money on this project. I would really appreciate a detailed explanation of why that's $4,000. Also, work started today, so we had approximately 1 week to know about this, and the second letter that came out kind of clarifying some things came today after work had started. So work started today. There was a planned water shutoff and I was not notified. So the water was turned off at my house with no warning today. When I came home on my lunch break, not only was the water turned off, there were 2 vehicles in my driveway. My husband was home. Nobody asked permission to park in our driveway. This is, like I said, my home, my property. We immediately called. They moved their vehicles, but still, it's setting a precedent for how this project is going to be handled. And the water turned into a major issue. They hit a main and it was off for hours. Understandably, things like that happen, but we had no advanced warning. So it did definitely impact my husband's day today that we had no water before he left for his afternoon shift at work. So overall, not impressed with the way the situation was presented to us, not impressed with the fact that our input wasn't asked for, and so far, I know it's only day 1, not impressed with the way the situation's being handled now that the project has started. Thank you.
Any further public comments?
My name is Diane Patrick. I live in the city of Marquette, and I'm the board president of Peter White Public Library. I've come before you 3 times now over the course of the last 7 or 8 years. So I want to thank you for putting it again in front of your voters. The majority of them have always voted to fund the library, and I'm thanking you not only on behalf of the people in Marquette Township, but from the city of Marquette and the other 5 townships that also support the library. So thank you very much for the consideration. Thank you.
Any more public comment? If not, we'll close public comment. Do we have any comments from the board members at this point in time? Trustee LaRue.
I'd like to thank everybody who went to the car show last weekend. They had a very nice car show, very successful. And also mark your calendars for August 2nd for the community days at the Lions Recreation Field over there. We have a great lineup of events, so August 2nd from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. Thank you.
Any other comment from board members? Trustee Tomple?
Well, I guess I'm going to comment on the water situation. Being out of country for the 2 weeks, I was kind of shocked myself when I got home and found was told of the letter. I guess way back last year when we did vote to go ahead with the preliminary plans, my confusion factor apparently must have been pretty high because I was assuming that it was simply running the laterals down Van Boom because we had two, I believe, residents that were having problems with their septic and needed to be hooked up. was kind of surprised when all of a sudden I did see the letter noticing that we were now going east-west on every street except Center Street, which kind of surprised me also, why Center Street was left off. But I guess my question would be also the fact that if we were going to do this big of a project, why wasn't the people notified of this prior to receiving a letter? And I did read the first letter, and it did seem kind of strange to get a letter saying you basically have no time whatsoever to decide on something like this. I think this is obviously you don't have to hook up to the sewer if you don't want to hook up to the sewer. But I think there was a major confusion factor here, and I think we probably should have handled it a lot better than the way it was handled.
Any further comments from the board? Clerk Rattari.
Yeah, July, I think we are past now the due date. You can register for the election. So if you do register now for August, you'll be able to vote in November. So, and I do agree with Trustee Pompo. It was my understanding that we probably should have did a better job with getting this out to the residents. And the reason why I support it is the residents don't have to hook up to this. So it's not a burden for them as of now. Two conditions are met for them to hook up. They either change ownership of their property, or if they had a failed septic. And that could be 20 years, it could be indefinite, it could be tomorrow, who knows. But like I said, the only reason I think I support this is because if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. And I know some residents are unhappy, but I know there's a lot of folks too that are going to hook up to it. So I mean, it's kind of plus and minus, and in my book, I mean, not everyone's happy with the decisions that are made, and like I said, I still think overall this was a good decision, because like I said, for a financial burden on a resident right now, if you don't want to hook up, you don't have to, and you take your chances from there, I guess. So.
Manager Gerard?
Yeah, I guess I can answer some of the questions. Back in May of 2013, Superintendent Page brought to this board a proposal to engineer, design, construct, and to administer the construction of a project that was approved by the board unanimously. That began the permitting process for this project that through the DEQ that took until October to complete. At that time, came back, reported it, and the project started. This issue with Northwest Trowbridge has been an issue on the table with this board since I became manager in 2002. And before that, there have been literally minimum three similar projects that have come before the board, this board and prior boards previously, that were not pursued. This particular one came back to the board at this time because there is funding available again under the SRF, the State Revolving Loan Fund, low interest, and the board approved it. We have failed septics in that area that is identified, and that's why this area has been identified, is because we have 3 failed septic systems that have to be connected to the sewer. Trustee Pompo is absolutely correct. There were 3. The project that's in place right now is to install the mains and to connect. Nobody is required to connect to the sewer at this point. And admittedly, the letter that went out to the residents, I did not see it before it went out, was clumsily written. But if you get down to the end of the first page, it tells you you don't have to connect to it unless you have a failed septic or you're selling your property. So the issue of connection is not an issue. The issue of the water shutoff today was not a planned or scheduled shutoff. When they were boring, they bored a hole. No, when they were boring, no, the boring was happening because they were boring, and that's why the people were in the area. But when they were doing the horizontal bore, one of the contractors who was doing the boring hit one of the laterals, pulled the lateral out of the main, and that's why the main had to be shut off. It could not be repaired without being shut off. So that was an accidental repair. Yeah, that was.
On the street told me, "Oh, you should have been notified." All I can say is that's what
Yeah, notified of the boring. But the folks that were doing the boring, it wasn't us. It was a contractor that was doing the boring that hit that line. So I just want to clarify that. It wasn't a planned shut-off. You obviously would have been notified of a planned shut-off if we were shutting the main down. But I think the key here is that nobody is required to connect. We're funding putting it in. We're funding putting in the mains. If you wish to connect, you certainly can connect now, but then you would have the permitting costs that you talked about. But in the future, if you don't connect and your system fails, the health department is not going to issue a permit. And that's why we're doing this. The health department is, a year ago you had the health department standing before you, telling you that they were not going to be issuing permits to redo the septics because the area is saturated and it's a public health issue. So we're putting it in proactively, basically. And if your system does fail, your septic system fails, you will be required to connect. Or if you sell your property, the new owners will be required to connect at that time. But you don't have to now. You don't have to do anything now. The question about the grinder pump is that's pure cost. No, there's no profit. We don't make profit. The township government cannot make a profit. Basically, it's operational costs. It's installation, acquisition of the grinder pump, installation. That's where the $4,000 comes from. So I think those are the issues. But admittedly, and I apologize to the residents because the letter was an awkward letter. It was not clear. It was not a well-written letter that went out from Superintendent Page.
Any other questions or comments? The only thing I have is, I have a grinder pump. I've had it since '91 when they first put them in, and they last somewhere in about 15 to 18 years, the inner workings.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a project of the township, the township comes and replaces it. There's no cost to you at all. So the only cost you have is to have the wiring from your house to the grinder pump itself, and that's the extent of it. We never know it's working, so
Until the alarm goes off.
until the alarm goes off, and it's gone off a couple times, false alarms, but they go off and it went off once, and the alarm was right next to our living room outside wall, and we could not figure out why there was a big vibration and everything going on, because then I went out the back deck and looked around, the light was on, I could hear it at that point in time. You made a call, and
Hello?
within 30, 35 minutes, there was someone there checking it out. So
Yeah.
there's really no big problem in that.
But along these same lines, I would definitely encourage the folks that are on septic systems to maintain them. I mean, make sure you maintain them. One of the issues that we had this year, and granted, it was an exceptional winter, but we did have several of the drain fields literally freeze solid, and that basically ruined the drain field. So that was part of the impetus of getting this
Trustee
project
LaRue?
moving.
Is there any savings by doing it now versus waiting and if something fails after? Is there any savings for them to hook up now?
Time cost, I mean, everything goes up every year. I mean, costs don't generally go down. There's not any penalty or anything along those lines, but I would assume that the cost of materials may increase, the cost of labor, for the connection to the house, the individual plumber.
I mean, if you're digging it
cost.
up now and they hook up to it now
Well, if-
versus they have to re-dig it up after and.
Well, it's certainly less expensive if you do it while they're installing it. I mean, obviously, because there's much less labor, it's already dug up. But in terms of a penalty or something along those lines, no, there's no penalty for not connecting.
Any further questions, comments from the board? If not, there's no forum discussion. So we're down to the last item. Trustee Clerk Moritari,
I'll move to adjourn.
Sweet.
we have a motion to adjourn and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
8:45 PM, meeting adjourned.
I did my best.